And this is where I fundamentally disagree with those who say, oh, there's a political crisis in Turkey, can't handle the EU. They bloody well have to handle the EU, because it is a major problem for the economic development of the country. Now, by contrast, the AKP, everybody says, of course there is an internal crisis in Turkey. There is an internal crisis in Turkey. But people don't get entirely right what the crisis, the nature of the crisis is. It is true that the crisis is in large part a crisis of democratic legitimacy. That is correct. But it is not simply that it is a majority government. It is worse than that. In 2002, the AKP got 35% of the votes nationally. In the Kurdish-speaking regions, it got only 25%. It was 10% down compared with its national total. In the local elections of 2004, it got 42% nationally and 40% in the southeastern region. In 2007, it got 47% nationally and 60% in the Kurdish-speaking region. I.e., the AKP has proven two things. First, that Islamic solidarity is a very important force that can hold Turkey together, holding Kurds and Kurdish speakers and Turkish speakers together, and that they are the most effective people in putting the Kurdish, I wouldn't say separatist, but particularist parties in a minority situation. It's a very impressive result. And secondly, that by putting huge emphasis on the economy and by doing things for the southeast, they were able to get the votes of the people down there. At the present time, the Constitutional Court, which incidentally is not made up of lawyers, they are political appointees, which has already found the law on the headscarf, has already said that that is unconstitutional. That court has not only before it the case to ban the AKP, but the Kurdish party too. Now, when I was last in Istanbul, meeting lots of Turkish friends at the Greek-Turkish Forum, they were saying, just imagine if the Constitutional comes out and bans at the same time the two parties which effectively have obtained 95% of the vote in the whole of the southeast of the country. What sort of a message that sends? That's an aspect of it which has not surfaced. So it may have in British press, and I haven't read it, but I don't think that it's really surfaced to the degree it has. It would be an extremely serious thing. In terms, it's not just that they got 47%, it's that in a particular region of the country, which is one of the most sensitive, and has traditionally been one of the most sensitive, the message it would send would be absolutely disastrous. Now, the interesting thing is, however, and I think the British press has somewhat got the wrong end of the stick here, it says, everything that I've read since I've come to Britain in the last 10 days, is that the decision on the headscarf is a sure sign that the party will be banned and the 71 political figures will be banned for 5 years from political life. When I was in Ankara, in Istanbul, our Turkish colleagues said that that is not so, that the headscarf was for sure. There, Erdogan, who's incidentally made a lot of political errors in his time, and taking the bait offered him by Bahçeli, Devlet Bahçeli, the head of the MHP, the Nationalist Party, on the law of the headscarf was a huge political error, rather than doing it through more human rights-oriented change of the Constitution, which is what he had said that he would do when he was re-elected with 47%. It was a huge political error. If they do go ahead, and if they do ban the headscarf, they might then simply fine the party. Only 6 votes are required to fine the party out of 11. 7 votes are required to close the party. If they close the party, the next party to take over is already ready. So closing the party, even closing the party, will not be the biggest damage. The biggest damage will be through the banning of Erdogan himself and any number of 71 figures, which means they have the 71 political figures under accusation, which means that all those figures will then have to withdraw from political life, theoretically, for 5 years. But please note it does not affect one important thing. The AKP, in its new form, the new party, will continue to have a majority in parliament, in the Turkish Grand National Assembly. That means the government that will come to power will basically be an AKP government, again, under a different name, with a large number of MPs who will necessarily become independents first, then joining that party, and then a number of by-elections, and of course we shall see what will happen in the by-elections. The secularist game plan is that it is that government which should suffer humiliation at the hands of the European Union, that it is that government that should have the penalty of economic failure. That is the secularist game plan. Now, having argued the case for the AKP as forcibly as I can, let me argue now a case for the moderate secularists. I mentioned already one hideous error that Erdogan made, but he made a much bigger error than that. The message that Gül and he should have sent is that, yes, the issue of headscarves in universities is a human right. Our wives wear headscarves, but they will only wear them in public. The Queen of this country is Anglican, as you well know, in England, and Presbyterian in Scotland. I have no doubt she has her personal convictions, one way or the other, or something quite entirely different. I don't know. The point is that being in a position of state necessitates certain behavior. They have not done that. They have not said, which would have been stretching out the hand to the secularists, our wives will not wear the headscarf when they are on state business, because Turkey is a secular state. And that is not only a symbolic point, it is also an absolutely essential point, because a substantial part of the Turkish population, perhaps 15 million, are Alevis. And the Alevis do not like at all the Sunni pressure to which they have been subjected, not just under the AKP government, but since the military takeover in 1980, when Islam started becoming a part of the school system, which it had not been previously in Turkey. So, we have a situation in which, very soon, whoever is in government in Turkey is going to have to think, what can I do so that I do not bear the burden of a collapse in Turkish confidence as a result of an economic crisis, or as a result of France, Germany, and Austria obtaining a breakdown of Turkey's road towards the European Union. And that's where Cyprus comes in. That is the crucial issue. I'm not going to talk, except in answer to questions, about the details of Cyprus, because I did that a week ago. But what I am going to say is that it is at this point, in the period up till, in principle, March, April next year, when the European Union will begin a radical reassessment of how the Turkish European Union accession process goes, which, being the European Union, can be delayed. That certainly it may not be May, April, May, March, April. It may be May, June, it may be July, August, it may be September, October. All these things in the European Union happen. Clocks stopped, and various other things of that sort happen. But it's going to happen sometime next year, because some of the countries very much want it to happen, and they don't want it because they are favourable to Turkey. Britain, par excellence, supported by Sweden, supported by Greece, supported by Spain, are amongst the countries which would like to see the process continue. Either faster, in the case of Britain, or slower, in the case of Greece, but still want to see it continue.